If you make any of these mistakes when you start your trucking company, you'll be bankrupt within a year. I guarantee it. If you don't believe me, just look at what happened to Yellow Corporation, one of the largest trucking companies in the US, after their CEO made mistake number 6 on this list. Spoiler alert, it didn't end too well for them. But that's not going to be you, because I'm going to show you the 7 deadly mistakes you need to avoid if you want to survive in the trucking industry. And we're going to start this list off by talking about the most expensive mistake that new owner-operators make, which is falling into the Krueger trap. The easiest way I can explain this concept is by looking at a bank robbery. In 1995, this guy, MacArthur Wheeler, robbed 2 banks without a mask on. Now, in the 90s, security cameras were a brand new thing and people didn't really know much about them, but MacArthur Wheeler was a genius. He had built a foolproof plan to rob banks and go undetected by these security cameras. So that's exactly what he did. He walked into the bank without a mask on, stole some money, and left. Unfortunately, he was caught and arrested 2 days later, and when the cops asked him why he didn't wear a mask, he told them, "I thought the security cameras couldn't see me if I covered my face in lemon juice." Yeah, this guy's master plan was to rub lemon juice on his face and rob banks. The reason I'm telling you this crazy but real story is to explain how people with very little ability or expertise in a given field think that they actually excel in it. And I see this happen in trucking all the time. You know, a lot of truckers think that, just because they're good at driving and delivering loads, that they're naturally going to be good at running a trucking business. That's just not true. If you don't know how to track your finances, use tech and software, make basic repairs on your truck, or book loads, you're going to put yourself in $250,000 in debt and ruin your family's life. So before you invest a single dollar into starting your trucking company, spend a few weeks to educate yourself on the industry. If you just watch all the free videos that I make on YouTube, you'll be better prepared than 99% of owner-operators. Anyways, this brings me to mistake number 2, which is a mistake even seasoned pros make. What I'm talking about is miscalculating your CPM. And trust me, you're probably doing it wrong. For those of you that don't know, CPM stands for cost per mile, and it's one of the most important metrics you need to track for your trucking company. This single metric will tell you exactly how much money you're spending to drive each mile. If you don't know this number, or even worse, are not calculating it correctly like 90% of trucking companies out there, you're going to be bleeding money to deliver loads. So how do you actually calculate it? Well, you could do a bunch of math by hand, and figure out all your fixed expenses, variable expenses, how many miles you're driving per month, what your average fuel consumption rate is, all that good stuff. Or you could just use this CPM calculator that I built for my trucking company. If you want to use it for free, I'll leave a link in the description. You can join my Skool community, go to the Classrooms tab, and find all of my free templates over there. But before you do that, you'll want to hear mistake number 3, because it's going to shock a lot of you. Stop wasting your money buying used trucks. I know I'm going to get a lot of comments about this, but here's the truth. If you're serious about trucking, you have to put your money where your mouth is. A lot of new owner-operators think that buying a semi-truck for their business is the same as buying a car for personal use. And it makes sense, right? A truck is just a vehicle, so if you buy used, you can save a lot of money up front and still get a good asset. In theory, this makes sense, but most of you don't have any experience working on trucks, so you don't even know what you're looking for. Even if you had that experience and you knew how to diagnose a semi-truck or box truck, you're still taking a gamble buying used. If you try to penny pinch and save money on the biggest asset of your business, you're going to regret it. Not only is your maintenance and repair costs going to be much higher, but you're also losing revenue every single day that your truck is out of commission. And if that wasn't bad enough, older trucks generally have worse fuel consumption. So think about how stupid this is. Just to save a few $1,000s, you have permanently increased 2 out of your 3 biggest expenses. Don't fall for that trap. Just buy a new truck, keep it under warranty, and keep trading it in every 3 to 4 years. Anyways, moving on to mistake number 4, and probably the biggest lie you're told about the trucking industry from online gurus trying to sell you something, which is you're going to get rich running a trucking business. Now, don't get me wrong. Just like any other business out there, you can make a lot of money. However, what most people don't tell you is that the profit margins in this industry are insanely low. But that's not a bad thing. Let me explain. Let's take a look at 2 different trucking businesses. On the left, we have a owner-operator, someone who bought a semi-truck, has a MC/DOT authority, and is making money running loads. On the right-hand side, we have a truck dispatcher, someone who finds high-paying loads, coordinates routes, and maybe even handles the back office paperwork for a carrier. Now, let's just assume both of these trucking businesses are making $25,000 per month. The owner-operator will have to use that $25,000 to pay for fuel, for wages, insurance, truck and trailer payments, maintenance, and loads of other expenses. At the end of the month, the owner-operator might only be profiting $3,000 out of the total $25,000 that he made. On the other hand, a truck dispatcher doesn't really have a lot of overhead expenses, okay? They just need to pay for a load board, maybe a website, their phone bill, maybe some other dispatching wages, but that's about it. Because of this, the dispatcher ends up profiting $20,000 out of the total $25,000. The owner-operator has a profit margin of 12%, while the dispatcher has a margin of 80%. By the way, I'm being pretty generous over here to the owner-operator because usually trucking companies have a profit margin of anywhere from 2.5% to 8%. But why does this matter? The reason you need to care about this is because your margin determines how much risk you can take. As an owner-operator running a trucking company, you don't have a lot of room for error. Every single month matters. Now, I know you might be thinking to yourself, well, this just sounds horrible. Why would anyone want to start a trucking company? And the answer is simple: volume. The smart owner-operators, they recognize that as they grow their trucking company and they get more and more trucks and they're able to handle more and more volume, they're not only going to make more profit, but they're also going to grow their margin. When you have 5 to 10 trucks, you can not only book higher rates by working directly with shippers, but your expenses are also decreasing since you're sharing your costs between a fleet of trucks. With just 10 trucks, you could be profiting somewhere around $50,000 to $80,000 per month. That's a lot better than the $25,000 per month that a truck dispatcher can make with 10 trucks. But hey, if you want free training on how to start a truck dispatching business, I'll give you that at the end of this video. Anyways, going off that last point, another common mistake I see new owner-operators make is not knowing about the hell period. For those of you that have never heard of this, hell period is just the first 2 years of your trucking business when you get a brand new authority. The reason I call it that is because it doesn't matter how good you are at negotiating, how good you are at sales, how good you are at driving. None of that matters. You're going to struggle to find loads your first 2 years in business. And the reason for this is so obvious that you're gonna feel dumb when I tell you. Let me explain this through an example. So imagine you wanna start working out and building some muscle. Okay, you're tired of seeing all these jack dudes flexing on you and you wanna make a change. But you have to decide between a few options. You could buy an online training program and go through it step by step. You could hire a personal trainer. You could join a workout class, or you could start doing a sport. Now, all these options work, and all of them can get you to your end result. However, the thing that you have to do to get there is very, very different. In trucking, it's the complete opposite. A trucking company with 100 trucks provides the exact same service as an owner-operator with 1 truck. They're just delivering a load, that's it. Okay, there's not a lot of ways to differentiate yourself in this industry. And because of this, brokers have a ton of options to choose from, and they can be very picky on who they want delivering their loads. And one of the rules that all these brokers have is that they don't want to work with any trucking company whose MC authority is less than 2 years old. Now, the only way to get around this is by networking and building relationships with brokers or shippers. And if you don't want to do this, or if you don't know how to do this, you can also just work with a truck dispatcher who already has years of experience in the industry and has already built up those relationships. If you survive the first 2 years, you can build a massively profitable trucking business. Speaking of survival, the only way you can guarantee survival in this industry is if you avoid this next mistake. In the intro, I showed you how one of the largest trucking companies in the world went bankrupt because they ignored this one simple rule. What I'm talking about is something I call financial ignorance. I'll catch a lot of new owner-operators saying things like, well, I'll just book a load for a few cents less, or I'll pay my drivers a few cents more than other trucking companies. The problem with that mindset is not only are you being extremely lazy, but what you're trying to do doesn't work. Think of it like this. How comfortable would you feel if you were on a plane with pilots who didn't know how to check the altitude, didn't know how to check the speed or the fuel? If I was in a situation like that, I would start praying to every god I could think of. I might even send a little prayer up to Zeus, who knows. The point I'm trying to make is, if you're not tracking your business performance, your business is essentially flying blind. You can't just look at what your friends are doing in the industry and decide how you're going to run your business based on that. If Henry Ford did that, we wouldn't have cars by now. We would just have faster horses. But seriously, if you want to make money in trucking, you have to start tracking your finances. You have to know exactly how much money you're making and how much money you're spending every single month. And you can do that by using my Truckers spreadsheet. Again, another completely free template for you. So if you want to download it, just join my Skool community and go to the Classrooms tab. The link will also be in the description below. But before you go do that, let me just expose the last mistake you need to avoid. If you do this right, you could end up making an extra $3,000 per month with very little extra work. I'm not even exaggerating. This is probably the most important skill that you can learn in trucking, and it involves mastering the load board. 99% of new trucking companies have to use something called a load board to book all their loads. Now, the problem is, a lot of carriers are using load boards, but there aren't enough loads to go around for everyone. If you don't learn how to find hot markets or negotiate rates with brokers, you're going to have to pay a truck dispatcher like me $3,000 per month to do that for you. Or you can save your money and just watch this video right here, where I show you step by step how I consistently book high paying loads and negotiate rates with brokers. I want to show you exactly how I use the load board, how I find hot markets, and how I finesse brokers into paying me more than they should. Anyways, go watch that video right now, or everything that you learned in this video is essentially useless. So I'll see you there soon.